How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a video back in my VW Polo 9N. You'll find that hopefully the sound quality is slightly better than the last few days I've been doing, because I've been recording generally in my Mazda MX-5, which is supercharged and makes a lot of whining noises and a lot of loud noises generally. This car, much quieter, much more comfortable from an audio perspective, shall we say. Now, I've been getting a lot of messages and comments recently around the VW Polo, which basically is the foundations of my YouTube channel, asking about whether or not I'm going to sell it, what the plans are for it, because it hasn't really appeared too much in videos very recently. So I thought in this video I would briefly answer some of those questions and let you guys know what the plans are for the car, what the next steps are, why I'm not getting rid of it, and just generally give you an update on the Polo, because in my head, not getting rid of this car, and I don't want to get rid of this car for a really long time, which I know surprises a lot of people because I've been speaking about buying a supercar, an exotic car recently. Surely if I'm in the market for that kind of stuff, I could maybe get a better daily driver, but I'm going to tell you why I don't think I need one. Anyway, remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff, and without further ado, let's get into the video. So why am I not getting rid of the Polo, despite, yes, having the MX-5, the other MX-5, which I will sell at some point, and potentially buying an exotic at some point in the not too distant future? Yeah, it kind of would look cool, wouldn't it, to have like a really cool daily driver and an exotic car side by side in the driveway. That would be pretty sick. I don't know if I can afford it. Maybe I can. I'm not really sure. Haven't really looked up the numbers, but that might be a nice looking thing, particularly on Instagram and on YouTube thumbnails. But one of the key reasons why I simply cannot get rid of this car right now is just how cheap it is to keep running. So I think road tax is actually relatively high on it. I think the road tax I'm paying is like £130 or something per year, which is not the end of the world. I could definitely get cheaper, but it's not that deep when you think that this car is actually ULEZ compliant. And considering this car was £400 when we bought it, and they still sit somewhere between sort of £400 to £1,000, that's very reasonable. You would have thought, as it's a 2002 plate, that it wouldn't be ULEZ compliant, but there are some cars that still are, and this is one of them. And at the moment, there's quite a bit of uncertainty in my life, and I don't mean like bad uncertainty, I mean good uncertainty, and by that I mean in the next 6 months I'll be moving from where I am in sort of Watford area into central London to live with my girlfriend and all that other good stuff. And when I make that move into London, I'm going to need a car that is ULEZ compliant, because the MX-5 very much isn't. In 6 months, just after I move into central with my girlfriend, the ultra low emission zone is extended to pretty much everywhere within the north and south circular roads of London. And that basically means that every day that I drive my MX-5 around in London, I'll have to pay something like £12.50. Meaning if I just want to drive from wherever my house is, which won't be in central, it'll be like close to central, but it won't be in like central, I will have to pay £12.50 for the privilege of being able to drive the MX-5. I don't have to pay that every day in this car, which is a massive benefit, obviously. I would 100% be considering selling this Polo if this car wasn't ULEZ compliant, but as it is compliant, you cannot go wrong. 400 quid, ULEZ compliant, are you dumb? Of course I'm going to keep the car. I'm going to keep it running for as long as I can and not have to spend too much money on other stuff, and that will enable me to have more money to spend on an exotic car. Don't tell my girlfriend, because she will kill me. And so yes, it's cheap on ultra low emission zone, but it's also cheap in all the other aspects. So I've mentioned obviously tax, but also petrol. I can fill this car up for around about £30 or £40, and once it's filled, that will keep me very happy for probably, I would say, 200 to 300 miles of relatively aggressive driving. Spirited is the word, isn't it? I'm supposed to say spirited driving, yes. So with 200 to 300 miles of spirited driving before I need to think about getting more petrol into the car. But yes, considering those low running costs, I just don't see any real reason why I need to get rid of the car right now. It has such low running costs, and it costs me so little each month. And yeah, I don't understand why I'd need to get rid of it. But that's only point one. Point two, and this is probably more importantly, it is genuinely quite fun to drive. It is horrendously slow. I am foot to the floor in third gear right now. Oh, we're only doing 65 miles per hour. You can absolutely rag this car. Like, you can go all out and rag the absolute nuts on it, and at no point are you doing dangerous speeds or even probably breaking the speed limit. It just doesn't happen, because foot to the floor driving in this isn't fast. 52 brake horsepower when it left the factory, and that was obviously back in 2002, so almost 20 years ago at this point. It's not a fast car at all, and yes, fast does not mean fun. Now the MX-5 is reasonably fast and it is a lot of fun, but that is for reasons other than just how fast it is. It's more fun because of how it handles. Now this handles horrendously compared to the MX-5, obviously, but it handles fun. It's predictable. You can kind of tell that the car is understeering exactly as it kind of should be, so you can kind of understeer around corners in a really fun way that only very lightweight little front wheel drive cars do. It hasn't got enough power to make anything seem particularly dangerous, and overall it's just really fun to drive. Like, look at this, I'm just gonna hammer it into this left-hander here. I'm absolutely pinned, and I'm still not at the speed limit, but I had fun doing it. So yeah, when people tell you that, like, oh, you drive a fast car and it's fun for the fastness, I disagree. So when I drove the 4C, for example, it is a very fast car to drive and it is fun to drive, but it's fun for different reasons. Anytime you actually put your foot to the floor, you're actually a little bit scared, and not because you're scared of the power or scared of crashing or whatever, you just don't want to be breaking the speed limit that quickly. In this, you can just kind of do what you want. You can drive it as you want to, and you can be aggressive, and you can drive it in like a fun way on the road to enjoy yourself, and you're really generally not doing anything illegal. So yes, I genuinely find this car enjoyable to drive, and hopefully you guys can get that as I drive in this video, because a lot of the driving I do in this is a lot more aggressive or involved than it would be in my MX-5, which I tend to cruise around in a lot more. I do the odd little blast in it, but in general, as soon as you do a little blast, you're doing the speed limit, and you're putting yourself at risk. Got a good story actually from earlier today, which I need to tell you guys at some point. I won't tell you in this video, but a story about the MX-5 and some police, and it was interesting. Now, I mentioned running costs are low, and that is true. Now, also on top of that, it's pretty solid. Like, nothing really goes wrong on it, and if it does go wrong, it's nothing major. As discussed, I think I've had 2 coil packs go on this. On both occasions, it cost me 25 quid to replace, and you can do it yourself. It's really not that deep. And then outside of that as well, one of the other key things that has gone wrong on this more recently is that it had a rusted through exhaust pipe, and so yeah, it started blowing. Replaced the exhaust, cost me again like I think 20 quid or something to replace the exhaust. It's not that deep. Yeah, we had that slight blip last year where it looked like it could have been dead, and since then it has run absolutely perfectly. So all in, it is such a solid car, and it feels solid still. That's the key thing. It feels solid when you're out on the roads. It doesn't feel like I'm ever gonna have a problem with it. Petrol and oil, and you're gassed. It's such an easy car to own, and so for that reason, I just don't see why I'd get rid of it. When you know you've got a good thing, why lose it? And then on top of that as well, it's quite an easy car to work on. This applies to both the MX-5 and this car. Both cars are super easy to actually do jobs to. So with this, as you've seen in many of my previous Pointless Polo project videos, hopefully, I have done a lot of the work on this car, and it is a super easy car to learn on. And now I really want to get better and better at working on cars, so that in future I can do some ridiculous projects. The only way I'm going to be able to do that is by having cars like this and like the MX-5 to learn on, to develop on, and to be better at working with and on cars. I don't want to get something more expensive that I'm more scared to work on, or alternatively something that I have to finance. And if I finance it, then it's all a little bit sketchy when it comes to actually doing modifications, especially when you're doing all those modifications on YouTube and people can see them. You saw what happened to Living Life Fast and people like that. I don't want that to happen with me. This car, I can do whatever I want to, and it doesn't really phase me, my insurers, or the internet, or any financiers out there. Kind of leading on from that point, I don't feel like I'm done with this car yet in terms of what I want to do with it. Now, you will have seen that recently I haven't put out very many Pointless Polo project videos, and I'm sorry for that, but the part of the reason is I have a lot of really cool ideas for the project in my head, and I can't really execute on them at the moment, and that kind of annoys me. I don't know for certain what I want to do with it, but I've been thinking about maybe an R25 project. I've been thinking about a Polo GTI project, which is a little bit easier. I've been thinking about a Polo JWRC project, and so all of those I've done previous videos on, and you can go and have a look at them. Now, the preference is 100% the JWRC project. If I could achieve that, I would be so gassed, and I know how to get pretty much all of the body kit now. It's all very much possible, but I wouldn't be able to make it a proper JWRC car without a lot of support from my dad, and at the moment he's obviously working on the Peugeot 206 WRC car, so I would have to do like a half-assed JWRC project where I made it a JWRC looking car, but it was still ultimately a road car on the inside, and I'm not sure I want to do that. It might look cool, but I wouldn't want a car that looked as sick as a JWRC Polo and then had a 1.2 litre 50 brake horsepower engine in it. That is like the ultimate level of rice you can possibly imagine. And so all of my money towards projects has been put onto the MX-5. And by the way, if you're interested in the MX-5 project, I've just spent $2.5 grand on parts for that car, and I am very excited to share them with you. They haven't arrived yet, but once they've arrived, I'll be putting them onto the car slowly. I also need to do a couple of other bits in terms of like swapping the diff over from the other car. Yeah, a few bits and bobs that need to be done. I'm very excited to do them all and share the whole process with you. But yeah, if you spend $2.5 grand on parts for this, you've basically bought 6 more 9Ns. So, oh, and I forgot to mention as well, my insurance is so cheap on this car as well. And I've had it with the same insurers for such a long time now. Every year I'm just getting that price down and down and down. You saw last year I managed to drop it by like 250 quid. Financially, when I'm thinking about buying a house, when I'm thinking about buying an exotic car, all of that kind of stuff, it's important that I keep my outgoings per month and my outgoings per year as minimal as possible and my incomings as high as possible. And currently as well, it's a key and important point about this car, it has been such a good cash cow for the channel. When you think about it, I spent 400 quid on this car and I've probably spent about $1 grand and a bit on parts for it. It has easily made back its money and more on YouTube videos. And if you want to give this car some credit for the fact that this channel has even gotten to where it is today, because these were the first videos that actually got anywhere on this YouTube channel, then it has very much had a massive return on investment. And so for that, I am forever indebted to this car, and I do feel like I need to finish a project on it. I'd love to keep hold of this car. I'd love to get to a stage where I could afford to own like a nice, decent garage or whatever, where I can work on it properly and actually put some time into making it something special. For me, this car has been hugely important in terms of enabling even the existence of that MX-5 being in my garage and enabling the idea that I'd be able to buy an exotic car. All of that comes back down to this Polo. And sometimes sentimental value is just that much more important to me than cash value or whether someone else looks at my car and thinks it's sick. And the final point I wanted to mention in this video is that I genuinely don't know what I would replace this car with. I've alluded to this in previous videos, but one thing that I really struggle as doing the kind of YouTube channel that I do, looking at loads of different cars every single week, doing all this research into different types of cars, I have no idea what cars I do and don't like anymore in terms of actively wanting to buy one. I literally couldn't tell you with certainty, with chest, what my next daily is going to be or what I want as my next daily. And I really don't want to make a decision that I regret or that I'm like uncertain, I'm not 100% sure. When I make my decision, I want it to be the correct decision for my next daily driver. And so for that reason, this car has to remain a placeholder up until then. I would like to stop having this as my daily driver, not sell it, stop having it as my daily driver, and then use it for other projects and doing other cool, interesting things on. But I really don't know what I'm going to swap it for at the moment. I really don't know when I'm going to swap it or when I'm going to be in a position to actively, I don't know, make a decision on swapping this car out. There's only 2 real criteria for cars that I buy in the future. Criteria 1, so I don't want to buy anything that's depreciating. I pretty much exclusively want to buy cars that I know that over the time that I own them, they will either provide me with enough value personally that I don't mind that I lost a little bit of cash on them, or they're cars that are going to maintain their value or go up in value in the long term. Now that's a very difficult thing to do, but I want to start thinking in that mindset of buying cars that don't depreciate, because this hasn't depreciated, my MX-5 hasn't depreciated, in fact it's gone up in value. This means that the purchase money that I put into these cars has remained. Yes, I've spent other money on these cars that I won't be getting back, I assume, but the actual value of the car has remained the same. I think that's a really good mindset to have when buying and owning and driving cars. Try and find something that is going to give you value in terms of enjoyment, but then also isn't going to just leave a massive hole in your pocket at the end of it. And number 2, I really like special cars, cars that look and feel special. That's why I really like the Alfa Romeo 4C. They are such a rare car, and like, you could buy a Golf R and it would be equivalent on pace and performance. You could buy an RS3 or an S3 or whatever, again, equivalent. But in reality, they're a little bit of a muchness. Even cars like the BMW M4, etc., they're not that special. Don't get me wrong, I really like them as cars and they're really nice cars, but I don't think that they're for me because they don't have that sort of, I don't know, exotic allure or that pull that something like a 4C has. Even like the R8, so one of the cars I've been looking at is the Mark 1 Audi R8 V8 with a gated manual. Stunning car, one of my favorites, but is it special? There are plenty of YouTubers that have had R8s. There are plenty of R8s that I see out on the roads. I almost never see Alfa Romeo 4Cs on the road. And so for that reason, reason I want to buy a 4C. It's the one thing that sits in my heart as what I want to get. I want what other people don't have, is probably the easiest way of putting it. And so what is that from a daily driver perspective? Well, I just don't know. I don't know. I haven't worked it out. I haven't yet worked out what that perfect daily driver that feels, looks and is special, I don't know what that is yet. And I'll give you one final point, just for those of you that have stuck around for this long. One thing that I'm actually quite proud of after all of this time doing YouTube, what, 3 years now on YouTube almost, of actually making videos, is the fact that I've somehow managed to grow to 70,000 subscribers, 70,000 of you lovely people watching my videos, by driving 2 genuinely very cheap cars. How am I out here in a £400 Polo and a £1,000 MX-5 and there are 70,000 people sitting home watching me? I haven't yet had to buy a supercar or an exotic car. I haven't yet had to spend ridiculous amounts of money on cars themselves, and yet I've still had a reasonable amount of YouTube success, and you guys have stuck around and watched me for whatever reason. I don't know. I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching, but it makes me feel really proud that I've managed to get to this place without having to be one of those people that just is in and out of cars all the time. Not that that's a bad thing to do, like getting in and out of cars all the time means you get a lot of experiences, means that you have a really cool ownership history of cars. I'm not knocking that, but I haven't had to do that. I've still managed to grow a relatively reasonably sized YouTube channel, and it still continues to grow. So for that reason, I have to thank all of you guys, and yeah, I have to just thank this car and my MX-5 for everything that they've done for the channel so far. Honestly, rain and sun is the reason why I have trust issues, I swear. But anyway, I hope this makes sense to me. I know I've waffled on a little bit, but I really wanted to just talk about this car and answer some of the people's questions that you guys have been on about. Remember as well that this car really is the definition of this channel, which is that whatever car you have, whatever car you drive, it doesn't need to be a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, it can be anything. Like your car, buy a car that you like and then enjoy it. Whether it's a £400 Polo or a £400,000 Aventador, like your car. Thank you to the patrons for their continued support, and to you guys as well for watching. I will see you in the next one.